All right, Don. So the other day I was reading through your book and I came across a story about Langley Wind Tunnel. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, I can tell you a lot about that. That goes way back. But my interest in that kind of stuff has always been there. I love airplanes, as you know, especially vintage aircraft. I love that and all the histories of the engines and stuff. But the aerodynamics has been an interest, only not only because we needed to have a deep interest in it when we were racing, but because of what it really is. It's a means to an end. So when we were doing our Pontiacs back in the day, and we we were concerned that a lot of the stuff that we did and we developed got leaked out. And that's an expensive thing to bring a car to a wind tunnel, and all the work that goes into it, all the people that are involved, and then to have that information leak out. So I was talking to our aerodynamicist at the time, who was an engineer prior to coming with Penske Racing South. uh, this young man, Andrew Scriven, was an engineer and a designer at Penske Cars in England. And he had a lot of wind tunnel experience. So we would take him to the wind tunnel, in Georgia, and we would take him to the wind tunnel in Detroit. But every time we developed something, it would take about a month and a half, and everybody had the information. I don't know who was leaking it out or if they thought that's what they needed to do, but it was very expensive for us because we were putting the money into it, and other people were deriving the profits from it. So I said, Andrew, listen, I know this guy, the old story, I know a guy. I know this guy because I was, really close to some of the engineers down in Florida at NASA. But I said, I met a man at NASA who told me that the wind tunnel at Langley Air Force Base was going to be turned over to the public and for public use. And I told him, take a minute to think about this. What if we did enough to bring to that wind tunnel to bring cars in there? Well, that went over kind of like a bad dream, But then, as we went a little bit further, then they threw up all these things. You can't go to Langley Air Force Base. You have to have a secret clearance to get in there. I said, well, when I was in the service, I had a secret clearance. I mean, I don't see why it should be that way if the wind tunnel can be isolated from what you're doing with the aircraft. So then they said, well, that Langley Air Force Base wind tunnel, that was for airplanes only. And I remember seeing pictures of a Corsair with the engine running, hanging from the stake in the Langley wind tunnel back during the Second World War years. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a major endeavor. But we got into the inner circle at Langley. I met a man by the name of Jim Cross. And Jim Cross and I hit it off immediately. Jim Cross was a pilot. He flew a lot of like 50 missions in the Air Force during not only the Korean but the Vietnamese endeavors. But he flew a F-94, which I thought was a neat looking airplane, but didn't see a lot of action. But he got to see some action. Anyway, he and I hit it off really well. And Jim said, you know, Don, if you guys want to put forth a proposal, we can take a look at it, a serious one, because he was the guy that was in charge of all this turnover by the federal government to the to the general public. So anyway, quickly, this took several months, but Andrew put together a proposal, and Andrew Scriven was the engineer, and he said, you know, Don, we can convert that for cars. And I said, okay, you know, and he showed me what he wanted to do with the balance under the surface of the tunnel, and how we had to, you know, change the lead into the tunnel. And I said, Andy, this is going to take a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's going to cost a lot of money. He said, well, let's say it this way. We'll get half a dozen guys, and we'll come in and we'll start doing it ourselves. And you work out a deal with Jim Cross. So I did. And I said, Jim, if we get this converted for cars, then we are the only ones that get to use it for a year. And we'll pay for it. But we want to keep our secrets, our secrets. He said, I understand completely. And believe it or not, Andrew Scriven put together a program where we could do a lot of the work ourselves. And that place was, let me say this, it was antiquated. But we got it all turned around, and we put in a lot of our own technical expertise in our own computers, and tied them into their system, which was really a significant breakthrough, because we had some trouble there, but we got it all done. And then it took us about 3.5 months, which everybody thought was phenomenal, which I still think was phenomenal. And we got going with it. We put our first car in there. We had to lift it up with this crane device that we made. To get it up on the floor of the wind tunnel, we had to lift it about each car about 25 feet. So you don't want to drop that baby on the way up there. And we figured out how to do it. We got got to the point where we got it pretty well smoothed out, and we used that tunnel for probably 2 years. 1 year with no outside influence at all, which was really neat. And then other people found out about it and they wanted to use it, and that was the deal. They could use it, but everything had to be kept separate. So it was something that we were really proud of doing. It's something that we proved worked. So we could compare what we were seeing in the 40% scale model program with a full-size program, and then at the 40% scale we could show what happens when you have a rolling road, when you had the wheels spinning. So all of that had an influence on it, but it was a tremendous effort, but it was worth every minute that we had with it. And then it sort of faded when a lot of these other tunnels locally opened up. We opened up a 40% scale tunnel right here in Mooresville, and then one of the Hendrick guys separated, and he opened up a full-size tunnel here in Mooresville on the outskirts, right up on Mazeppa Road. So and then of course eventually Stuart Haas opened up their own full-scale tunnel. So everybody's on the same program now. Wind tunnel testing is probably it's probably more important now than it ever was, because it takes so much just to gain just a tiny edge, and it takes forever to do it. So that's the story of the Langley Tunnel, and it was really a big effort.